Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Years ago, I received a call from a member of AmSpirit Business Connections. For those who don't know, AmSpirit Business Connections is a membership-based organization. People join, they go to these group meetings to learn about each other and exchange referrals. And so this member called me, and it wasn't particularly unusual. I get calls from members from time to time, but sadly he called to quit. And he just said, listen, I haven't been here a while, haven't gotten any referrals, and it's just not working, and I need to put my time and energies somewhere else. And I totally understood. I felt bad. I always feel bad when that happens, but that's just the way it was going. And so I just happened to be going to his particular chapter, the chapter he was involved with that next week. And when they started the meeting, I told them, I said, well, Patrick's not going to be here today. They're like, well, okay, where is this person? Where's that person? Well, listen, I'm telling you, if he didn't tell you, Patrick's not going to be here. He called me. He said he was leaving the organization. And there was this collective little chuckle under everyone's breath. And I'm like, okay, what am I missing here? And somebody chimed in and said, we like Patrick. We really like Patrick. But Patrick's been here a year, and we have no idea what he does. No clue how to help him. Now, there are two shame on yous in this moment. That's not the point of this, but there are two shame on yous there. There's shame on Patrick for not better articulating what it is that he needed help with or what his business was. But the other shame on you was the chapter. They should have stopped, well before a year, 3 months, a month, and said, we need to understand better if you're expecting referrals. And I always tell people that there are only 3 reasons why you don't get referrals. And it's always one of these 3 reasons. People try to throw a 4th or a 5th at me. It's one of these 3 reasons. The first is that you don't have a relationship. That wasn't Patrick's problem. They liked him. He was there. He was known. He was liked. He was trusted. They would have given him referrals, but for the second reason. They had no idea how to find opportunities for him, had no idea how to recognize opportunities for him. And then the third reason, which may have come into play once people understood what Patrick was about, but the third reason is that people then, beyond just knowing how to recognize opportunities, they need to be able to engage with others to talk about it. So if I'm going to refer you, I need to be able to talk about you in some sort of coherent fashion. Just to say, okay, I recognize something. I noticed I had Drew Durrani on here. There's this guy, Drew, and I think he can help you. And this is why I think he can help you. If I don't understand what Drew's about, and I do, I won't get into it. Sorry, Drew. But if I don't understand, what somebody's about, I really can't talk about it. Or if it's something I'm not comfortable talking about, I'm not going to talk about it. But the big thing I find is that middle one, recognizing opportunities. And today's program is really about how to get referrals by tapping into people's simple thinking. We all understand our own businesses. Patrick understood his business. I had conversations with Patrick throughout the year he was involved afterwards, and I had a sense as to what he was about. Yeah, he could have done a better job, and I'll touch on that. I'm not picking on Patrick. I think this is a lesson for all of us, to be honest. It's a lesson for all of us. But I sort of understood what Patrick was about, and I talk with people. I lost my train of thought there, but it's a matter of getting other people thinking about who we are and what we're about, and recognizing those opportunities. And I'm always I know what I was saying. I really apologize. Is that we all know our businesses really, really well. When I was an attorney, I knew my business really well. And the problem is that I knew it too well. I knew it so well that I assumed everybody knew what I knew, because that's all I ever thought about. Realtors, same thing, 16 hours a day. They deal in real estate. They think everybody else understands real estate like they do. They don't. Mortgage lenders, same thing. We all fall victim to this. We become experts in our area, and we're so close to it that we think it's so commonplace that we forget that other people don't know a minute portion of about what we do. We have more knowledge about what we do in our pinky than they have in their entire bodies. Realtors spend 16 hours a day thinking about real estate, and all goes into a real estate transaction. I might think about it 16 seconds. It's just not part of my world. Now, if I'm looking for a house, it's a different story. Or trying to help somebody find a house, it's a different story. So we really need to dial into helping people recognize opportunities for us. Years ago, I read a book called Made to Stick: Why Some Ideas Survive and Others Die by Chip Heath and Dan Heath. There's like 3 first names right in there. Made to Stick is the book. For those who are watching the video portion of this, I've got the book I just shared. It's an orange book with duct tape on it. It sticks, right? You think about it. But there's a portion in the book. It's a great book. It's a long book, and there's lots in there talking about how things stick in people's minds and how things don't. And one of the things they talk about in there is the concept of schemas. And what a schema is simply information that is pre-recorded in our brains. We all know things, and there's stuff in our heads. And everyone's brain is chock full of these little bits of information. I always tell you, when I get to this point in doing this presentation, and a lot of these things I'll test on AmSpirit Business Connections chapters, is when I tell people, roses are, and everybody will fill in red, because that's what they have been trained to do. And everyone has these little bits of information in their head. And we use these little bits of information to make learning things easier. And this is just part of what they talk about in the book Made to Stick. And it's really true if you stop and think about it. We tie a new concept to something that we already know. And a great example of this is, and I need to make sure I get this right, is when we were taught multiplication. We were taught multiplication by pointing back to addition. 2 times 4 is the same thing as 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. You may not remember it. I don't remember it, but it just seems conceptually, okay, yeah, I get it. All multiplication is a quicker way of getting, 2 plus 2 plus 2, getting to 8, as opposed to, 2 times 4 is just a quicker way. And that's how we learned. Calculus is built on, algebra, advanced algebra, and, geometry. It's all building, where our learning is building. When somebody says it's as blue as the sky, you know what the sky looks like, and that gives you a sense as to what they're talking about. So what a schema is essentially using people's knowledge, what they already know, and a lot of people already have things that are somewhat commonplace, and then tapping it into other sorts of learning. And I've got a series of examples, because I tell people to try and use schemas to help others understand and recognize opportunities for you. And as I go around and work with AmSpirit Business Connection chapters, as I go around and talk with people and help people try to become more successful with respect to giving and getting referrals, certainly giving referrals, I tell them to use schemas, use bits of information that people already have, and help them learn a new concept. And this is especially useful for people listening, people out there who have things that are somewhat complicated. AmSpirit Business Connections is complicated. We all kind of get what realtors do. We all kind of get what financial advisors do. And so they don't need to use schemas as much, but they certainly can. But AmSpirit Business Connections is a foreign concept for people who are not familiar with this sort of business. Now, if you've been with organizations like BNI or LaTip or the like, and I talk about AmSpirit, you totally get it, because you've already learned it. But if you don't have any sort of understanding as to what AmSpirit's about, that's a tough road for me to, or tough hill for me to climb, I should say. It's trying to educate people. And one way I use schemas, and this is not, I don't want to make this a pitch about AmSpirit, but one of the ways I use schemas is I will say, do you know how people really hate the cold call? And most people in business roll their eyes. Oh my gosh, yeah, I hate it. I run into very few people who truly enjoy cold calling. And so I'll just ask, you understand how people hate cold calling. You know how you hate cold calling. Well, that's something they already know. And I'll just say, we create groups of people, of all sorts of people who in different professions that all hate to cold call. And through that, they help refer each other business. Now, that doesn't explain everything, but it gives people a sense as to what we're trying to do, how we're trying to create referrals. And it's certainly something that you can do to help people learn better about what it is that you do using these schemas. And I've got a number of examples here that I will tap into here. Um, Here's one that a friend of mine has. She's a telecommunications consultant. Do you know how the Secretary of State has someone there to translate with important foreign dignitaries? We all kind of get that, right? Our U.S. Secretary of State's with the, Secretary of State for France. If they don't both speak English, there needs to be some sort of translation going, and we kind of get that. Well, what my friend Gina, she's a telecommunications person, she'll uses that information they already have in their head to say, well, I help businesses by translating with telecom companies so they can get the business and get the phone and internet services they need. Again, she's tapping into what people already know. Here's one. Do you know how people like to test drive a car before they buy it? I think most people understand that concept. I've run into a few people who've just bought cars. Um, I won't get into that, but people do. But for the most part, people want to test drive a car. I want to test drive a car. Hey, I'm going to buy it. I still want to drive it. So do you know how people like to test drive cars? People already have that understanding. Well, I help people test drive a home by inspecting every aspect of it before they buy it. That's something that a property inspector, a home inspector, would use to make people understand. And not everybody, if you've bought a home and you've used a home inspector, you get it. But if you're somebody who's never bought a home, why should I pay somebody upwards of $500+ to go through a house that I know I want? Well, they're going to, like you test drive a car, they're going to kick the tires. They're going to turn on everything. They're going to test everything. So again, taking something that they know and applying it to a new concept to help them understand it better. Okay, here I got some others. Somehow or another, a couple of these are all car themed. But do you know how your car has a service engine light to forewarn you of trouble? I think we all get that. We all see that service engine light. It freaks me out. I don't know if I should pull over or I can drive another 500 miles. I don't know. Maybe just put better gas in it, whatever it might be. It might go away. But we all understand the notion of a service engine light. Well, what computer person said is one of their services is installing software on your computer to allow them to monitor it to forewarn of any issues. Okay, now I get it. Now I get what remote monitoring is. When you tell me remote monitoring, I don't really know what it is, but when you couple it with the notion it's like having a service engine light for your computer. I get it. Now I can refer it. Now I can talk to somebody about it. Here's one from a financial advisor. Do you know how, with the game Tetris, it's easy in the beginning and much harder as the blocks come down faster? That's like investing. Again, we all kind of understand Tetris. Most people have played Tetris. They get Tetris. They might hate it or not addicted to it, but we all understand we've played it. It's like as the blocks come down, it gets harder and harder. Well, this financial advisor uses that to explain his service. Well, that's like investing. When you start, things are simple and slow moving. Then in time, it becomes more complicated, faster moving. As an advisor, that's where I add value to those seeking a secure financial future. Okay, I get it. You know, I get it. And, it's one of the things I've used in talking to my kids about having a good advisor. Have a good advisor. Oh, we don't need an advisor, Dad. It's easy. This investing thing's easy. It won't be. It won't be. You know how you play Tetris, right? How it gets tough? That's what's going to happen in time. You know what? They have advisors. Last one, maybe the last one. Do you know how hotels have concierge to cater to the guests' every need? This is from a banker. Well, that's my role at the bank, to get our clients to the right person to serve their needs: checking, savings, investments, loans. And that, now I understand what the banker does. I get the whole notion of a hotel concierge. Now I get a better sense as to what they're about. They're not a teller; they're the quarterback. I guess that's another schema there. But they're the concierge. They're going to figure out, where do you need the help? Let me get you to the right person. Last one. Do you know how you go to the doctor for a checkup just to be sure everything's okay? Again, we all kind of get that. Whether we go to the doctor or not, we understand that concept. That's how I work with current and prospective investment clients. Again, this is another investment advisor. We review their situation, hope that it's well positioned, and fix where it might not be. So the whole portion of this, or the whole point of this particular program is that if you want to get referrals, it's not enough just for people to know, like, and trust you. That's important. That's the foundation. But the next piece of that is that people need to be able to recognize opportunities for you. They need to be able to recognize opportunities. And one of the ways you can get them to recognize opportunities, and there's lots of different ways, but one of the ways is through the notion of schemas, is tapping into things that they already know, and basically attributing it to other things that they may not know so well. It's as blue as the sky. Okay, I get it. So anyhow, think about that as you drive around. None of these things are easy. I tell people, you have to continually be thinking about. I was working with somebody over the weekend, and we tapped into the notion of the Wizard of Oz. You remember this scene in the Wizard of Oz? Most people have seen the Wizard of Oz, remember that scene. Well, that's kind of like what you do. Oh yeah, you're right. So something to think about as you move about.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.